Hi, great to be here. I'm Ofer, and I'm going to talk about creating digital fashion. So for the past 25 years, I've been working in 3D creation, founding and managing 2 3D companies, and in the last decade, advising and helping companies improve their 3D asset creation, forming and building teams, and helping them innovate and scale. I work in all types of 3D creation, from jewelry, electrical appliances, home commerce, footwear, avatars, and motion capture, and of course, fashion. Today, I help companies improve their organizational performance in the digital world by assessing, planning, and executing their projects. I'll first explain why creating digital fashion is so challenging and talk about 2 specific fashion projects I worked on recently. Both are phygital and add value by connecting the real with virtual and vice versa. So let's talk about the challenge. In the world of 3D and digital, fashion is one of the most challenging assets to create. When I talk about fashion, I refer to 2 main categories, clothes and footwear. Today, I'll talk mostly about clothes. The reason fashion and footwear didn't get implemented yet as much as other markets, such as furniture or electrical appliances, is because they are a lot more complicated to create. The benefits of the computer and software used to create jewelry, appliances, and furniture is also what makes it that more difficult to create fashion. Unlike in reality, where clean, new, and shiny products are more valuable and hard to keep new, in the digital world, creating digital assets smooth and perfect is the default, and much more difficult and require more work to make products look uneven, folded, dirty, or defective. This is the reason that creating jewelry, furniture, etc. is easier to imitate using CG, because most of these are flat, reflective, and smooth and hard surfaces made of materials such as plastic, metals, and others. Digital assets consist of the model, which is the shape of the object, and the material and texture of it. This is the reason that if you want to create correct clothes, you must use specific tools such as vStitcher or Marvelous, which use physics to simulate how the final output and shape of the garment will look, as opposed to tools such as Maya, Blender, and 3D Max, for example, which are better suited for hard surface modeling and working on the final shape all along the process. So the 2 main challenges are, first of all, shape. Since clothes change according to body size, react to gravity, and change when moving, you shouldn't work on the final model from the beginning, but create different pattern pieces and let the physics simulate and create how the final shape will form. The second one is the material. Different types of materials, such as leather, silk, cloth, change according to how the light reflecting the materials and how the cloth itself moves and stretches. It changes rapidly. Regarding the stretch, this can also affect the way it looks, since in some garments, when stretched, they might become more transparent. So, case study 1, browswear. Scaling the garment library for professional fashion designers. Browser is a creator of vStitcher. It's one of the leading design tools for fashion. They have over 1,000 companies working with them, such as Nike, Lululemon, Ralph Lauren, and more. I worked with Browser to help them scale their avatars, 3D accessories, and also help create pre-made clothes blocks libraries so their clients would be able to choose from and be able to, since these were supposed to let the customer use just as an initial design templates, we concentrated just on the 3D shape, not add any textures or materials. Although many 3D designers use vStitcher and Marvelous to create impressive looking clothes and create the whole process of the pattern and design by the same artist, for real professional designers to be able to use these later for manufacturing, the patterns have to be correct. The patterns are the 2D cutouts that are created at the beginning and which are then stitched together to create the 3D garments. Since we needed these blocks to be used by professional designers, I wanted to make sure we're creating the process exactly as it is created in the real world. For this, I decided to divide the work process to 2 separate stages with 2 dedicated teams, one for pattern creation and one for the 3D design. So the pattern team was made up of professional pattern makers, each one with years of experience in pattern making and working with actual fashion agencies. The patterns should include as much construction detail as possible, and here are some important issues that must be paid attention to. The construction lines. That is the body placement, references, chest, the center of the back, the center of the front. With correct construction lines in the pattern, it makes it easier to trace back to the original design, hence making it easier to adapt the pattern. Notches. These are yellow lines that mark up where the saw should be on different pieces, and if not done correctly, these will not match up. The pattern should include corner points, which give orientation and explain to the designer how it should be connected. It's important and helpful to add rulers and measurements. And last, of course, is grading, which means adjusting the patterns for different sizes of people or avatars. Looking for these pattern designers to join the team, most of them were not even familiar with 3D tools, but were excellent pattern makers and were able to create the designs in 2D and CAD tools. So I created a process where we used these 2D designs and imported them into vStitcher. The designers team was made up of 3D fashion designers familiar with vStitcher. They took the pattern designs and used them first to stitch and connect them, and then run the simulations on the avatars. Using the correct physics with vStitcher and adjusting whatever is needed, and go back to the pattern designers if additional adjustment was required. One more thing, trims. All 3D objects, which are not garments or fabrics, such as zippers, buttons, buckles, cords, hooks, sliders, stoppers, etc., are called trims and had to be created correctly in order to be added. For this, we also created a library of trims that were modeled in hard surface 3D tools such as Maya and Blender, and we made sure they are according to real-life trims, which meant that we had to take exact measurements of and even the exact weight, since when running this inside the software, the physics and gravity pull these down. So if the weight is not exact, it will not work correctly and mess up the garment. To make sure all teams were working in sync, we created a management system and specific chat groups to handle all the different assets, teams, and processes, adding a QA team and making sure there was instant and direct communication between everyone and that the processes work smoothly. We created over 60 specific blocks that customers and users can customize according to their needs and not have to design from scratch every time. So the second project was to create a snap lens from real design. The client was Kaimin. Kaimin is a unique high-end fashion house creating crazy and unique clothes specifically for artists such as Beyonce, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Nicki Minaj, will.i.am, and many more. The task was to take a real dress they created and make a digital version of it that will work within a try-on app. So unlike with the previous project from Browser, reversing the creation process, going from real existing garment to a virtual design twin of it. Unlike with Browser, this was not intended for professional designers to use and create new garments, but for mobile users to be able to do a try-on using SnapLens and see how they would look wearing that garment. This was a lot like creating game assets, and so the work and creation process was also different. The first stage of the digital design was done using Marvelous Designer, but since the output was supposed to be rendered in real time with real-time limitations, we had other challenges to consider. To make it work in real time, we had to create a low-res version of the dress. For this, we remodeled the assets using a blender. That meant lowering the poly count and remeshing the model to make sure the poly flow is even and will enable correct binding of the skeleton. We also had to adjust the materials and texture maps so they would work well. We received many different texture maps from Marvelous, which is a waste of size and doesn't work well in real time. So we had to create one texture map consisting of all of these. In addition, the UV was not ideal. So we recreated the UV and adjusted the material maps sizes so they will be smaller size. Another decision was made in the specific sides of the dress, which were supposed to be made up by two parts, one for the front and one for the back, with a see-through stripes that are only held together by cords. This was not a good solution for real time, as it would take up too many polygons and not move correctly, since Snap does not use actual physics. So the solution was to create just one model for all around the body, and we made the sides using transparent textures with the chords just as texture maps. Since this was low quality for real time and would only be seen in mobile phones, it was a good solution and the difference would not be noticed. Another thing we had to consider was real-time body collision. We had to make sure that some parts will be hidden and some not by the user's body. For example, we had to make sure the hands are inside the sleeves, but the palms are not hidden. And if put in front of the body, they should hide the virtual dress behind it. The project was launched last month and was a great success and the first step for the physical fashion house to start incorporating digital assets. So to summarize, although both of these projects involve virtual fashion, they're different from each other in the final product, use cases, processes, and tools used. Creating digital assets differs from one project to another, especially when creating fashion. But with big challenges come big opportunities, and I was happy to work on these. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope it was insightful, and we'll be glad if you reach out to me at my website, oferrubin.com, on LinkedIn, or just send me a mail.